Not a good message for any of us, to be right honest about it. I mean, look, the people in this state, we have people that are pro-choice and pro-life.
Missouri Governor Mike Parsons speaking out for the very first time on a proposed law filed by Republican lawmakers that would charge women who receive abortions in Missouri with homicide. There's been a lot of talk about that. Well, now the bill is getting pushback from anti-abortion groups. Our Missouri Capitol Bureau Chief Joe McClain has the story from Jefferson City.
It's important to note that abortion is already illegal in the state of Missouri. All these bills would do is open the door for prosecutors to be able to criminally charge people who get them. And these bills are getting major pushback, both from abortion rights advocates and anti-abortion groups.
Samuel Lee has been lobbying in Jefferson City for 40 years against legalizing abortion. But even he says the idea of making it a crime is a step too far.
We're absolutely opposed to changing the law that would allow women to not only be incarcerated, but if they're convicted of murder under these proposals, they could get the death penalty. That's not pro-life at all. We're absolutely opposed to these bills.
Governor Parsons said the bill sends a bad message.
I think when we strive to truly try to do things like that is probably something that's not good for anybody.
House Majority Leader John Patterson, who's poised to become Speaker of the House in 2025, said this bill does not align with the party's platform. He told me, quote, "These bills do not represent the mainstream thinking of Missourians or Republicans in the General Assembly. They are not pro-life. Our body should focus on legislation that makes life better for Missourians and makes families want to live here. These bills would do the opposite." Maggie Olivia is the policy manager for Abortion Action Missouri, which advocates for full reproductive rights. She says this Republican opposition to these bills is meant to make a mere abortion ban seem more reasonable by comparison.
Anti-abortion folks try to publicly distance themselves from bills like this. Because they know that criminalization is politically unpopular. The opportunity to publicly align themselves in opposition to these bills is really for messaging purposes only.
This all comes as multiple efforts are underway to make the right to an abortion part of the state's constitution. If that happens, state lawmakers would no longer be able to pass bills about abortion. Instead, they would have to amend the Constitution again. The sponsors of the bills, Representative Bob Titus and Senator Mike Moon, did not respond to our requests for interviews. In Jefferson City, Joe McClain, First Alert 4.